Hey, how you're doing? How are you? How are you? How are you? It's Thursday evening, and it is another exciting opportunity for us as we come to you again with that This Is Us podcast, where we share our stories, hear your stories, where we share our journey, your journey, focusing on relationships. Life is in relationships, and relationships are life. We want healthy relationships, healthy families towards a healthy society. Last week, we had with us Marjaalaine Francis, and as we promised you, we had to continue. We had to bring Marja back, and she's back with us for more of Call Him Daddy, a daughter's journey to connecting with and forgiving an absentee father. We invite you, as always, to write to us, to send us a voice note, to send us an email, to leave your comments on the live stream, whether you are viewing on YouTube. Welcome to you. Whether you are viewing on Facebook, welcome to you as well. Whether you're viewing live or delayed, welcome to you. Welcome, welcome. And one of my friends sent me a voice note sharing a slightly different aspect of what we are talking about, forgiving an absentee father. And I want to share that clip with us just before we continue hearing from Marja. Right. So in case you missed it last week, we had Marjaalaine Francis sharing with us. She's the author of the book, Call Him Daddy, A Daughter's Journey to Connecting with and Forgiving an Absentee Father. Marjaalaine Francis is a social worker actively involved in youth and community development, a volunteer youth mentor and empowerment facilitator with the Bob Marley Foundation and Youth for Development Network. She's a certified life coach, producer, and host of Moment of Hope, which airs on Love 101 FM radio in Jamaica. And outside of work, she enjoys teaching biblical principles, cooking, going to the beach, and spending quality time with family and friends. And we'll welcome her further in a moment. So let's listen to this clip, different spin on what we have been talking about. Call someone up, send someone a WhatsApp, send someone a Facebook, share the stream from Facebook, share the YouTube link. We want persons to hear this because we know how much this is a part of our lives, of our story as Caribbean people, of our story, of people in general, where many of us suffer from the father wound. And in general, it may not have been a father, but some person may be struggling with forgiveness. And Marja will share with us how she was able to forgive her father who had been absent, what that was like, how did it happen, and how do you now sustain a relationship where there once was none for so long, especially in your formative years? How do you heal? How do you have relationship after forgiveness, after the forgiveness has taken place? We'll hear more about that in a moment. So let's take this clip and then we'll continue with Marja. Listening.
Yeah, a lot of times I think as people, especially us Jamaicans, that we really don't show much emotion. We don't realize that we don't have to just forgive the ones who are living that don't show up for the kids, but we need to teach the children to forgive the ones who are dead, and that's why they're not showing up, because it affects them. We don't realize that it's something as simple as, talking to the child, letting them realize that, what, you have to forgive them. That's how you move forward. Because if you don't, because we do think like that. I'm talking from this perspective of a child that, I lost my dad when I was 2, and I was so angry about it. I was so angry about it. I was upset with him, because I felt like, why no matter what the situation is, like, why wasn't I enough to make you want to, fight to live, that kind of thing, which, when we get older, we realize it's not as simple as that. But yes, I had to, as when I grew up, I realized it was affecting a lot of things in my life. So I had to, meditate and find a place, where I was at peace with what happened, and I forgave him, even though he's not here. I had to find a space where, I made peace with it, and I forgave him for not making better decisions, that put him in a situation where he got shot and he died. And I also have to realize that, what, it doesn't matter how much he loved you and how much he probably would have wanted to fight to stay here. If he got shot in some places where he was just gonna die, yeah, no matter how strong he is and how much he wanted to live for you, it was just not gonna happen. So I just feel like as on a whole, we don't really address stuff like this. Is the kids have to kind of figure it out, because sometimes mom is so hurt, she don't want to talk about the whole situation, and then nobody talks about it. Or when the child tries to bring it up, everybody kind of just shut them down because they don't want to deal with it. But I think we need to take a different approach, as the future, and talk about these things, talk about it with the child, help them to understand, help them to deal, because as much as how you are the adult who understand what is going on, trust me, there's gonna be a time when the child is gonna be grown enough to understand what is happening, and if you help them to deal with it when they're younger, it helps them to deal with it better when they're older. Yeah. But this is such a broad topic, in my opinion. I think there are gonna be a lot of people who want to talk about, forgiving the ones that are living, because that's a very broad topic, and you can get a lot of different reasons as to why they're not showing up, and so this whole forgiving them when they die and they're not able to show up is probably a whole other topic that you could probably do a whole other podcast on. Because you're gonna have the dads who don't show up, not because they don't want to, but because the mom is probably still bitter from the relationship not working out, that she literally now hides the child from the dad and gives the child the impression that daddy no have nothing to do with you, or daddy no like you, and that kind of thing. And then you have the people who for financial reasons stay away because them can't do anything to help the child. And I mean, these are not things that should be used as excuses, because I think even co-parenting, parents should be able to come together and make it work, the co-parenting work for the sake of the child, because most of the times what they don't realize is that it's not really affecting them the most. It's actually hurting the child more than it could ever hurt them, the parents. But you have different situations there. I'm sure you're gonna bump into a lot of different reasons why these fathers don't show up, different situations, different reasons for different situations. So you'll have a lot of ground to cover on, how different people will forgive their dads in different situations where they are not showing up.
All right. That was Cassandra, young recording artist, actually. Cassandra sharing some thoughts, and a little bit different in her case. Her dad got shot, died when she was 2, and she carried that pain, blaming him for the choices he made, which she felt led to him dying. And she carried that for a number of years and had to decide to let that go and forgive her father, even though he was not alive. Marcia, welcome again. Greetings. Good evening. Your thoughts on Cassandra's journey, Cassandra's story, as we jump right back in with you as our very special guest. Thanks for stopping by with us again. Take it away. Your thoughts. Start there. Let's start there. Your thoughts on that audio clip. And then we'll continue with you.
Sure. Good evening, Teddy. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this us, yes, where we are sharing our realities. As I listened to Cassandra, I thought, just how powerful the thought process of thinking that even though that our father is dead and gone, there is still the need to forgive him. Oftentimes we're like, that buried, that done gone. But
literally buried.
The emotions that we carry, the hurt, the pain, we don't just bury them. We have to deal with them. And last week I spoke about forgiveness being freedom for me. And I think this week, having listened to Cassandra, she says nobody talks about the whole issue of why the father is absent and how it affects the child. There are some things that we really, in Jamaica, we don't talk much about. We just kind of accept them as the norm when they are not. I believe that absentee fathers being absent from their homes and the lives of their children is all too prevalent. It's too commonplace, in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and in different spaces. And really, as we engage in conversations like this, it is my hope that fathers, as they listen, they'll be challenged to take up their rightful position in the life of their children, so that we'll have less of these children being in the statistics of absentee father, right?
Yep.
And even as we focus on forgiveness, I want to start also with what really is forgiveness, because it just sounds like a buzzword. Why do I need to do this?
Why bother?
Right. To say that forgiveness is a choice, and it's also a process. Yes, forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance, hurt that we have toward a person or a group. And as we listen to the definition, it says deliberate decision to release. That means the onus is on the person who is offended to release the hurt, to take some form of action to get to that place of forgiving those who have offended them.
Right. The responsibility, you're saying that the onus, the responsibility lies with the person who has been offended. Now, a lot of persons, that really seems counterintuitive. That seems hard to accept, difficult to accept. Why should I be the one to take steps to make restitution? I'm the one who has been offended. I'm the one wounded. I'm the one who has been hurt. We would perhaps naturally expect that it is the offender who should make the first move, and that's one of the passages, one of the statements that the New Testament makes, that where Jesus actually quoting from a passage in Deuteronomy, he makes it very plain. He makes the point where he says in Matthew, if you are on your way to make your offering, to make your sacrifice, participate in the religious act of worship. And while you're on your way to church, to put it plainly, you remember that your brother or your sister has something against you. Now listen carefully. It says, you remember that your brother has something against you.
Yes.
Not you have something against them, that they have something against you. You leave your gift, put down your gift, put down your offering, and go to the person and make amends, and then come and offer your gift. Now that's a hard saying, but it underscores the point that you are making. And a lot of persons take offense even to that, and have a great difficulty accepting that.
That's true.
Why didn't you, or did you grapple with it? And if so, how did you resolve it?
All right, so grapple with the whole issue of unforgiveness that I had carried,
and particularly that you should make the movement, that you should initiate steps to have restitution and to start a process that would lead to forgiveness.
As you ask that, Teddy, I think quite often when we think of forgiveness, which is the decision, the choice that we make to release someone, sometimes we tie it with reconciliation to mean that it must equate to reconciliation, that it means that we have to go to the person, we have to confront them. Forgiveness does not necessarily equate to reconciliation, neither does it equate to confronting the person, because we can choose to forgive someone without even being in their presence, without even saying to them, you have hurt me and this is what you have done. And sometimes the expectation is that if I'm going to forgive this person, then they have to acknowledge that they have hurt me. They have to say that they're sorry. And truth be told is that some persons, they don't have the capacity, I would want to put it that way, to say that they are sorry.
Right. Well, I mean, take us on just that, for example.
And some just don't care to. And some persons may never understand the depth to which you are hurt when they would have done you something. And so we see Jesus's example that we should forgive the person, because when if someone offends us, Teddy, if you step on my toe and I'm like, oh, Teddy Brighty, I'm for do that, or someone betrays you, you're thinking that, boy, how dare them do that? The truth is they may betray and they move right along. You are left with keeping the hurt. Oh my God, how did they do this? I can't trust them again. I don't want to be in their space. I don't want to deal with them. So you are the one, the offended, that is carrying the hurt, that is carrying the pain, that is carrying the resentment. And if we don't confront ourselves and what it is that is hurting us, then we are going to continue in the hurt and even the thought of carrying out revenge towards the person, which we really ought not to be doing. So at the end of the day, whether or not we are there yet to accept that forgiveness is a choice and it's on us, even though it is someone that has offended us, then it's going to be a struggle. Ephesians 4 speaks to get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, malice, and all of that. These things come with unforgiveness. And it said, instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And so Christ has given us a model. We were sinners. Came out of line with his will, yet he has chosen to forgive us. And again, it's a choice for all of us to forgive those who have hurt us.
Yeah. You're dropping some real gems there. I want you to just elaborate a little bit more on that last, what you just said. Christ as a model, just as God in Christ has forgiven us. That's the model. But just to, again, underscore another point you made earlier that is very important. Because again, most of the times our energy and our passion. We are very excited about wanting to confront the offender, the person who has offended us. But you said it, and I don't want it to pass. You're just dropping the gems. I don't want us to miss it. You said that we should focus, paraphrasing, on confronting ourselves.
Yes.
Now, that's unexpected. That's unexpected for many, because we want to confront the other person. And even if and when we have the opportunity to actually confront the person,
yes,
it's important that we first of all confront ourselves.
Yes.
Admit that I'm hurting. Admit that I am angry and I'm upset, right? But also to admit that we need to release that. And I think it's very important that we underscore that, and that we ask persons to really, reflect upon that. So that's one thing. And then let's go back a little bit now to this whole idea of the model. Christ as our model, forgiving others just as God in Christ has forgiven us. I was reflecting recently on how many of us have been raised to learn to recite the Lord's, what we call the Lord's Prayer.
Yes, forgive.
And there's this particular line in there, forgive us of our trespasses, or forgive us of our sins, as we forgive those who trespass against us, or those who sin against us. And it rolls off the tongue because we've learned it. Yes. And we say, yet, many of us, if we are honest, we rarely have perhaps a number of persons that we have up, and that we perhaps, are in no place to even be willing to extend forgiveness to them. But right there in that model prayer, there's a record. Jesus recognized that is our struggle. That's my struggle, and that's your struggle, and that is our collective struggle. And so he invites us that whenever we think about prayer, that we ask for God's help with that. But notice the link. Just as you're saying, the model, Christ as a model, forgive others. How? Just as God in Christ has forgiven us. Let's explore that some more, and perhaps how did that help? Because we really want to hear a little more. So some of the specifics of how exactly were you able to forgive your father? You would have had the idea. You said it. You keep saying that it's a choice, and I absolutely agree that it is a choice. But then you make the choice. You made the choice, and then what? What happened inwardly, and then what did you do outwardly?
So looking at the model of what Christ, we notice as we forgive those who trespass against us. If you know that someone has done you wrong, you go and offer restitution or ask for forgiveness or choose to forgive them. The truth be told is sometimes we listen to or we hear the word forgiveness and we think that this is hard, it is impossible. But Christ, God is not going to tell us to do something that he knows that we don't have the capacity to do it. Because even if we may think in our human limitation, we don't have the capacity, he's going to do it through us. So if God asks us to forgive, then he has already prepared a way for us to forgive. So it's important for us to know that. In relation to confronting self, I will say again that forgiveness does not always equate to reconciliation or confronting the person who has hurt us, because they may hurt us and not even know that they hurt us. But we know that when we choose to forgive, in the book, chapter 6, I wrote forgiveness a necessary course because we all need forgiveness, right, Teddy? And people are going to hurt us. And also there was a disciple, I think it went to Jesus, how many times should I forgive?
Yes.
He said 70 times 7. So forgiveness is something that we need daily to practice. However, it's not always as simple as saying, you know, I'm choosing to forgive this person today. I'm just going to let them go and that's it. Sometimes, depending on who it is that have hurt us, how deeply we are hurt by the person, it may take a longer time for us to go through the necessary course of forgiveness. In my case, as a lady, then young lady, grew up without my father for years, didn't see him from I was a child, and then met him back in adulthood years. At that time, I knew it then. I was angry. I grew up being defensive when persons, one of the things that I used to resent, Teddy, is persons asking, where is your father? And ever so often, there are different persons, random persons, strangers, or persons I know would ask, where is your father?
Yes.
That would seem like a simple thing. For some persons, if you ask that, where's your father? They're beaming with joy, Daddy is here, and they are able to pinpoint. The truth is, I didn't know where he was, and I just felt that he abandoned his responsibility, abandoned me, and rejected me. And so I was carrying that hurt from the rejection. Last week I shared what happened as a child. So I was carrying that rejection. I was carrying that anger towards him. When I met him as an adult, I was speaking with him, but I really didn't know. There was this awkwardness. I didn't know fully how to relate to him as a daddy. He was still the man, sperm donor. That's what I called him when I was younger. Persons ask, where's your father? That was my response. I don't know where the sperm donor is. I don't know where the man is, you know, that sort of thing. However, when I came into this place of the forgiveness is a choice, which I speak about, and confronting me, I had to choose to decide that, you know what, I am going to forgive him. I am carrying this anger. How much longer will I carry the anger? How much longer will I carry the resentment? I don't want to be carrying this anymore. It's a burden. I want to be unburdened. What did I do? Persons may ask, did you go to him? No, I didn't go to him. Of course, there was a point where I'd call him to say, did you ever wonder where I was? Did you ever wonder if I eat, if I drink, if I was okay? That sort of thing. And he was like, yes, you know, he was looking for me. And I was like, I never did lost though. that sort of thing. But I recognized that my heart was hurting. And as a Christian, as a child of God, then forgiveness needs to be in every area of my life, not just some area. And so in choosing to forgive him, there was a point where I just had to sit with it. Marja, you're really carrying anger towards your father. Marja, you're really resentful towards him.
Confronting self.
Confronting me. Did I say, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I meet him and I tell him exactly how I feel? No. At that moment, I was like, God, this is just so much, too much, and I don't want to carry it anymore. And one of the things that I did, you know, from a social work training, we learn of the empty chair technique, where you speak as if the person is in front of you. And you also do the writing. And so I'm a writer. And so I chose to write. I began to write that night as I sat with it, as I confronted me, I began to write about all the things that I was carrying from a child, all the things that my father would not have done, all the things that I wished he would have done, and how much I was hurting up to that point as an adult, and began to just write it. And as I wrote that, I tell you, Teddy, an overwhelming feeling of grief, of having experienced that loss of growing up without a father, not having the father love and affection that I would have wanted. I began to write. And as I wrote, not only did I write it, but I began to shred. When I finished, I shred each piece of paper to pieces, and I began to say, I forgive you for, and I named the things that I forgive him for. And it wasn't easy because even in doing that, my heart still was at a place where I was sobbing. I was just crying and like, God, I don't want to carry this burden anymore. It's so hard to forgive him. And so help me with this. And so I invited God to help me in the process. And so as I'm sharing and I talk about forgiveness is a choice, I want persons to understand that sometimes it's easy and sometimes it may be difficult. And for me, I didn't go to him to say whatever. I just chose to forgive him. And as I did that process, I began to feel like a ton of brick had lifted off me, my chest. I felt freer than I have been in years towards him. And also what that did for me, as you speak about confronting self and how we see the person, the truth be told is I began to see him differently.
Yes.
It's almost as if it was a different person. I'm like, oh, I never saw him like this before. So when we forgive, when we release the anger, release the hurt, it frees us, the person who is offended, and it also causes us to see the person who has offended us through different lens than we would have seen them.
Right. Yeah. Wow, Marja, this is excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. You described, and folks, we hope you're catching this. If you need some further clarity, further details on what we share here, right? Our guest, Marja, is a sociologist. She's a trained counselor as well. So a lot of practical stuff, a lot of gems coming across. If you miss anything, remember you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to explain further and guide you further. So you did explain a little bit about the writing, that because we're focusing on the practical steps of forgiving an absentee father, forgiving the person who caused the father wound, or forgiving someone in general who has wronged you.
Yeah.
You know that there are persons who are hurting. So you did explain the writing, where you wrote it all out and you held nothing back, and then you symbolically tore up that as a symbol of releasing it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, what I want to ask you, Marja, just for the benefit of our viewers or listeners, just describe a little more the empty chair. Some persons may be hearing this for the first time, so I need to just describe that a little bit, and then we'll continue. So don't go anywhere. Stay right there. This is us, episode 8, part 2. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, great. We are taking a deep dive this evening into the process, the journey of forgiveness, confronting the father wound. Call him Daddy. Marjaalaine Francis, author of that book, life coach, social worker, graduate of the Jamaica Theological Seminary and the University of the West Indies, sharing with us not just theory, but practical, her own story, her own journey. And we know that for many of us, it is our story, our journey, as we say here on the This Is Us podcast. Ring somebody up, send out a WhatsApp invitation, share the link on Facebook, over on YouTube, share the link. Let's get more persons plugged in as we look at some real life issues. Where the rubber hits the road, we keep it real on that This Is Us podcast. All right, Marja. So you mentioned the second thing that helped you, the empty chair technique. Just expound a little bit on that for the benefit of our viewers and listeners. What is that?
So the empty chair technique, it's one that is used in therapy in some instances where the person, the client is asked to sit in front of an empty chair in terms of confronting some emotional issue that they may be experiencing. And what they do, the empty chair represents the issue that they are facing, the issue that they are choosing to confront with. So for example, in a case where there's an absentee father, the what's her name? Cassandra it was earlier. Cassandra, who spoke of her father who didn't grow up with him, but absentee father, but he was dead. So there was no way of her going to him. Actually, in person, like that, in person, she would not have been able to see him in person, but chances are, carrying the hurt, the unforgiveness, she would have used to that empty chair representing her father and just expressing to him, the empty chair, exactly how she feels. In the same way that I was able to write out what I'm feeling, the empty chair represent the person or the thing that you're confronting, and then persons can use that technique in terms of going through the whole process of what it is that they're going through and be able to get to a place of releasing it. Oftentimes, though, this is done in a guided session. It's not just you just sitting by yourself and just choosing to do it. You can, but it helps when you have someone in the process. And so I just want to put in the plug here that I'm also a life coach, and part of what I do as a life coach is helping men and women who have experienced emotionally or physically absent father to get to a place of dealing with the father wounds and taking action to move forward and to build better relationships. And so if persons need to contact me, please feel free to do so. We can go through a coaching session and take you through the process. Of course, the writing and the empty chair, that's not the only technique. There are other steps that can be taken to do so.
Yep. All right. Great. Yeah. Thanks, Marja. Why did you write this story?
I want to think it was not I want to think, just want to say that writing this book was not on my priority of one of my goals, wanting to become an author. I think God led me to doing this. And even when I was protesting, because writing the book would mean that I would have to be vulnerable, sharing views that I faced growing up without my father. I didn't want to write it, but you know what? One day I was having a conversation with some co-workers and we were talking about father, and the stories were so similar of different persons talking about how their father was absent, how it affected them. And I heard, write the book. And I was like, write book? However, after a while, Teddy, I conceded. I'm like, okay, God, you know, but if I've read other books, and reading what persons have wrote have led me to a place of transformation. And if I choose to write my story, the chances are that there are persons who can relate to an absentee father, and my story will provide some hope and inspiration for others to share their story and to get to that place of healing and wholeness. And also for me, I wanted to highlight the effects of absentee fathers on daughters, and also highlight the significance of fathers, because I don't believe that some fathers have yet to recognize how significant they are to the life of their children. The truth be told is that there are some great fathers who are doing an absolutely wonderful job, even though their fathers were absent, but there are still some other fathers that need to get to that place where they take up their rightful position and recognize how significant they are to the life of their children. There are too many dysfunctional homes, broken homes in our society. And it is my hope that having written the book, Call Him Daddy, A Daughter's Journey to Forgiving and Forgiving, and connecting with an absentee father, that other persons will get to that place where they too can choose to forgive their father. And if at all possible, also get to the place of reconciliation with their father. I had the opportunity to not just get to the space where I chose to forgive him, but have reconciled with him. And so now we share a relationship. We talk. I can now call him daddy, and you need to read a book to see how I got to that place where I was able to call him daddy.
Yeah. And that's a huge step, you know.
Yes.
I can relate. That's a huge step. You mentioned the effects, wanting persons, both mothers and fathers, to seriously come to grips with the effects of the father not being present, but also for fathers, for men, for the brothers to come to grips with the significant role and the importance of a strong bond and a presence in the lives of our children. The research is very, very, very clear. Every aspect of the child's life, their emotional development, their cognitive development, even physical. One of the things that was most shocking for me when I was being trained in the curriculum, the World Needs a Father curriculum, that there is some research that is pointing to the fact that children who do not have their fathers present are more likely to develop asthma. I was shocked when I came across that one, right? The cognitive development. The behavioral, right?
That's an issue as well.
Yeah, all the behavioral issues that arise, and again, it is well documented, right?
Yes.
And the spiritual connection as well, that the father is the one who conveys, who is most fitted to convey the relationship between God and us, because the image that is most frequently used in the Bible
is God as Father.
God as Father.
I had that difficult.
Frequent.
I had that difficulty even when I became a Christian at 20, and I could fully conceptualize God as a sovereign, a supreme being. But when I got into church more and more into the Bible and persons, God is my Father, that seemed foreign to me, because Father, there's a correlation with father and absent, not caring, not loving. And so I would be fine with saying God's supreme being, but I ain't calling him Father. It was difficult for me to get to that place. Over time, though, God would have brought me to that place where I was able to see him as a loving Father and not compare my earthly father with God, my heavenly Father.
Right. Yeah. And again, it is interesting that the very first word, when the disciples asked Jesus to teach them to pray, the very first word that he used, the word Father.
Yeah.
In English, we say our Father, but in the Greek, it's one word. The Greek language, the word carries a lot of the grammatical markings.
Right?
So it is Father in the Greek, in the form that is translated as our Father. So it opens with the word Father. That's how significant it is. The absent father conveys a God who is absent, a God who is distant. The abusive father conveys a God who is judgmental and abusive. And so again, it just underscores how significant this is. Now, one of the comments that came on my Twitter page this morning when I posted a reminder for this evening's episode. Young lady made the comment that basically that the mothers need to remember that if the relationship with the man ends, it ought not to mean the end of the relationship,
With the
his
child,
relationship with his child. Right?
certainly.
And so, I'm not at all wanting to be insensitive or appear to be insensitive to the hurt and the pain that a female would experience where there is a breakup, right?
Yes.
And I know that there are some of the brothers who are not doing right. The relationship ends and they tie continued sexual access to their presence and support of the child.
Unfortunately.
And we have to call that out.
Yes.
Right? We have to call that out. It ought not to be. So sometimes both adults, both the male and the female, by their actions, directly and indirectly, their actions are contributing to ultimately the father not being present. What message would you have, Marja, for females overall, as far as this whole dynamic of the ways in which the adult females sometimes contributes to the man being absent, or perhaps even the adult females who maybe themselves are not able to function in a healthy manner with their own child, perhaps because they themselves have not resolved their own wound from their own father. What message do you have for the females?
For those who may be having a challenge in terms of relationship and being connected to a relationship for a sustained period, it's to do the confronting. Ask yourself, what's happening here? What's about me that may be contributing to this cycle? What can I change? And if there is any level of unforgiveness, resentment, if they are feeling hurt, is to do the inner work. Also, I think within our society, oftentimes we shun therapy, we shun counseling. I think this is important. In the same way we take care of our physical health, I'm a big mental health advocate. Take care of ourselves. If we're not doing well mentally, emotionally, is to get the help, seek the counsel, seek the guidance. I mean, go talk to a therapist, go pay to do that. If you don't have the funds to do that, there are counselors within your church space, a pastor, an older woman who may be able to guide you to get you to that place where you're healed and you're whole. In some cases, men will tell you that it's because of the woman why they are not with the child, or why they don't want to connect with the child, they don't want to support the child. The truth is they're all adults, and they should know what's best for their child, but sometimes adults don't do the best by their children. They are thinking about themselves and they put their self first and not thinking that the child is affected by every action that they make as an adult. So I would say to persons, be mindful of your action as a mother, as a stepmother. How will it affect the child, not just while they are in childhood, but even as they grow to a place of adulthood, and to want to be that example that the child would want to follow, and look out for the best interest of the child. And you asked me to speak to the women, but I'd want to speak to the men too. Listen,
go right ahead. I was just about to bring you there.
You are the man, you are the father. It's your child as much as it's the mother brought the child here. Both of you were in tandem in bringing the child together, in bringing the child here. So both the mother and the father have a responsibility to take care of the child. Oftentimes when the man leaves the relationship, if he's divorced, if it wasn't a marriage, they leave the child as well. You still have a responsibility, whether or not you are in a relationship with a child's mother. That should not negate your responsibility to protect, to provide, to let your presence be felt in the life of your child, because your child needs you. We see what the negative effects are when fathers are absent from their daughters, but there are also some positive things that you would want for your child. Any man who really loves and cares for his child would want to see his daughter being more assertive, pursuing higher education, feeling better about herself, being more confident in her relationships, and having better grades in school. A lot of our children are underperforming. And if you look at the correlation, it's because the father is absent.
Yes.
They can do better in terms of education, academics, they can do better. Also financially, there's so many lack that our children face because the parents are not co-parenting as they were designed to do. And so I'd say to fathers, whether or not you're in the relationship with the mother like you were before, still take up your position. Let your presence be felt. I was asked often as a child, where is your father? And whenever I was asked that, I was angry. I would want to ask the fathers tonight, where is your child? What role are you playing in the life of your child? What view does your child have of you based on how you show up in the child's life or not show up? And how can you change the relationship that you have with your child for better? So that's my call to men tonight. Just take up your position and let your presence be felt in the life of your child. I think oftentimes men may be thinking, if I don't have the money, then I don't serve any purpose. You're more than the money that you bring to a household. So be present in the life of your child.
Yeah, definitely. Big message there. There's a whole narrative out there now that a man's worth, some of a man's worth is to the extent of the money that he can give to a woman. And we're going to come at it. We're going to come at it on an episode soon. But fellas, brothers, hear the message, right? There's a whole lot that is riding on us. There's so much that is within our power to do and to change. We may have our own wounds. We can come to confront our own selves and work through that. But please, the next generation is counting on us to get it right. And we have to fix it. All right. So, folks, once again, we want to thank Marja for taking these 2 evenings to hang out with us and share her own story. Get your copy of this book. There are work questions at the end of some of the chapters to further stimulate your mind and so on. Share with us again, Marja, the handles to reach you on social media. There might be persons who want to connect with you, to talk further, to book a coaching call, to get their copies of the book. It is on Amazon, and copies are also available locally. Give us the handles again, Marja.
The handle, as we get to the handle, just to remind, as a life coach, I'm on a journey to help men and women who had a physically or emotionally absent father to heal from the father wounds. I got to that place where I was healed. I want other persons to be healed and to take actions to develop healthier relationships. And so if you need to book a coaching call with me, let's go on over to my Facebook page, Marjaalaine Francis. You can send me a DM or you can connect with me on Instagram. That is Marja_Muse. Or you can send me an email at coachmarja1@gmail.com to get your copy of my book, Call Him Daddy, A Daughter's Journey to Connecting with and Forgiving an Absentee Father. You can get your copy direct from me, send me a DM message, or go on over to Amazon and get your Kindle or paperback copy.
All right, great. Thanks, Marja. You know, the thought that just came to me, one of the other things I'd love for us to be able to do here on that This Is Us podcast as a follow-up, you know, maybe not necessarily next week, but sometime soon. It would be great if we could find a man, a dad, who was absent, was disconnected for however long, and is now reconciled and involved with his child or with his children. All right, so if you're out there, you're listening, you're viewing, and you know someone like that, or you yourself are someone like that, send us a message, whether via YouTube, Instagram, at This Is Us Jones Clan. That's the Instagram handle. Same handle on Facebook, so you can send a message there as well. Hit us up. And for the rest of you, as usual, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your support. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the This Is Us podcast. Follow us on IG, follow us on Facebook, and let's continue to play our part in healing our world. Marja, thank you so much. Keep on the journey, keep on healing, and keep on spreading the healing. Folks,
thank you.
It's been great having you again. It was episode 8B, part 2 of the This Is Us podcast. Next week, God willing, we'll be at it again with more of our stories, our journey, your journey. On behalf of my wife, Latoya, my co-host, not able to be here with us this evening, we are the This Is Us. I am Teddy Jones, and this is us. See you soon.